All right, wrap up time for Mono Red Devotion, and this one has to be one of the most frustrating decks that I've ever played. So, it's not a horrible deck. We won some games with it, and when it's good, it is actually pretty good. Like, it plays a lot of big threats pretty quickly when things go right. The problem is it has an insane amount of variance, mostly thanks to the ley lines. So, let's talk about the ley lines. The ley lines are just, they're not good a huge percentage of the time. For the ley lines to be good, you have to have multiples of them in your opening hand, along with a Nykthos, and at least two mountains and a big threat. So you're trying to build like nut draws essentially by playing all these ley lines. Outside of that exact scenario, they are almost never worth a card in your deck. Yes, we pinged for a couple damage with Leyline of Lightning throughout the course of our games. Yes, Leyline of Punishment, I think, stopped some life gain at one point, but those effects just aren't worth having in your main deck. So the idea is they're going to generate mana. The problem is they don't do that consistently enough. They only do that when things go really, really well, and when things don't go well, you're mulliganing to 5 when you put the ley lines on the battlefield. So that was the first thing that really stuck out. If you have a bunch of ley lines on the battlefield, you do make a ton of mana with Nykthos, and the deck does have a lot of mana sink, so I like that aspect of the deck, but there's games when you just don't draw Nykthos. I guess the other possibility would be to play Expedition Map or something. Then you're playing another dead card, but the deck really wants Nykthos. Like, Nykthos is the difference between winning and losing with this deck. It seems like that is the one card most highly correlated with winning a match. Not that you can't win without it, but most of our wins are when we have Nykthos draws and are just can go so big. Cards that were surprisingly good. Fanatic of Mogus is pretty sweet with the ley lines. There were definitely times when our opponent would have the ground locked up and we would be able to just burn them out with a couple Fanatic of Moguses. Obviously, all the red mana symbols, Demigod of Revenge, and so forth, make that plan a lot better. And Chancellor was not as bad as I thought it would be. I'm still not convinced that there isn't something better that could be in that slot, but the 1/1 Goblin is pretty much irrelevant, but it's not horrible if you can play it on like turn 4 or turn 5 off of Nykthos mana, get a few Goblins. It's not the worst, but I'd have to think maybe even like a Chroma or something would be better in that slot, so there might be a better 7-drop to play in that slot. And the Blood Moon plan is sweet. That would be the other direction to take this deck, would be to make it more Blood Moon heavy and play some of those effects in the main deck. So that could be another option to look at as well. So things I didn't really like were the ley lines, although there were games where I loved them when it worked out perfectly. But the variance was just really intense. Things I did like is the insane amount of mana sinks, like Figure of Destiny, Kargan Dragonlord, and our big spells. We almost always have something to use our mana on when we do have Nykthos, and a bunch of mana symbols or lane lines sitting around. So, I don't know. High variance, it has the power to win, and its good draws are pretty absurd. You can play some really powerful stuff really quickly, but then it beats itself a lot, and it didn't come through in our videos, but I played a few other games with the deck, and I mulliganed a ton, and we would have ley lines and no Nykthos, or Nykthos and no ley lines, or like 3 Nykthoses. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong with the construction of this deck. So it is an all-in red deck, and that is what it is. Regardless, it's pretty fun to play and not super expensive by modern standards, and there might be some ways to work with it and make it even better. So anyway, that's been our Much Abrew About Nothing for this week. The deck was fun. I'm glad we played it. Make sure to vote on the instant deck text to vote for next week's Much Abrew About Nothing deck. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you soon.